do? Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call the Pembroke School Committee meeting on Tuesday, July 8th, 2025 to order. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Time for public comment. I believe we have one. Mr. Bryant, would you like to approach the microphone, sir?
Hi, everybody. Let's endure the heat tonight. Appreciate you being here, too. And the heavy load that you guys are carrying never stops, does it? I'm aware of that, I believe. I dropped in your school committee, in your inbox, a concern that I've had for some time. And I think it's recognizable and well meant. And that is my observation that over a period of time, I think the Trevor Project, which is regularly referenced in deliberations, broadly speaking, certainly on the school committee, but outside in general, is something that I'm concerned about. Because I certainly, and you know, I just want to emphasize that what might be so easily referred to is so readily disbelieved by so many who are listening. And after a while, or at least significantly so, and after a while, as it's mentioned and mentioned and mentioned, the question comes up, are we ever going to actually look at that reference? Because it is actually, it seems to be being relied upon. Not well meant, that's not the issue. And I put in your box an article that was just released by the Atlantic magazine, not a bastion of conservatism, as you know. And I'd like for you to take the opportunity to read it. I would hand it out, but it's got so many hyperlinks in it that I wanted to send you what I could so you could easily reference it. So my hope is that in the future we would be very careful before we so easily say to other people, would you rather have a live daughter than a, you know how it goes, right? And that's pretty rough to say publicly. Could be true, but it sets people back in their seats to say, is that actually true? Does the evidence from sociologists, psychologists, et cetera, actually support that mantra that's so easily said? I was over at Marshfield the other night for their select board meeting, their now famous select board meeting, and as they were considering Pride Month and so forth, it was just so easily referenced. And I thought, no, that needs to be talked about in a fair, judicious, and empirical way. Where did we get that conclusion from? Is it actually supported by the evidence? And primarily I'm concerned about the status that the Trevor Project has in deliberations and discussions. To each their own, but I think it's a fair moment to say, hey, wait a minute. There's a lot of people that are struggling with this thing, and our deliberations ought to take that into account. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Acknowledge and schedule visitors. We don't have any visitors today that I'm aware of, so we're not going to acknowledge them. Adjustments to the agenda, Erin?
Nope.
Nothing. Communications.
I know I have one thing I want to share, and I know Allison has a second that she'd like to share. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick update. I'm sure you've seen the press releases and blurbs that have been going around about the withholding of federal funding. I just wanted to give you just a quick overview of what that means for us here in Pembroke. So many of our entitlement grants continue as they have in the past. So Title 1A, Title 1D, Perkins, McKinney-Vento, and IDEA, all of those award letters have come in at exactly where the allocations were estimated to be. Of the grants that are being withheld, Pembroke only gets 2 of them. Title 2A, which is Fund Code 140, which the name of the grant is called Teacher Quality. In the past, we've used those funds for professional development opportunities for our staff, to bring in professional development speakers or workshops or whatnot. Each year, we receive about $40,000 from that grant. Again, not a huge amount of money, but at this time, obviously, if it was to be withheld for the entire fiscal year, we would have to come up with a plan for to make up some of that funding. The only other grant affected that we get is Title 4A, Fund Code 309, and that is a grant that's about $10,000 for us here in the district, and we've used it in the past to purchase curricular materials. So again, not a huge amount of money. We're talking about $50,000 potentially being withheld. We talked a little bit internally about making up that shortcoming if we had to, but again, not something that is going to prevent us from starting school on time or paying staff or doing any of the things that we had already planned for the beginning of the school year.
So I know we've had some discussion around this table and at policy about cell phone restrictions or whatnot in classrooms. So I'm sure maybe some of you have seen there's a strong push right now in the state Senate to make a bell-to-bell ban of cell phones. I personally would like to have us as a school committee authorize Aaron to write a letter to our 2 state reps and our state senator saying that at least I personally believe this should be in local control, and this isn't their, they should let us as the local school committees have this be our jurisdiction and our decision to what works best for our schools and the policies and handbooks and whatnot that we have for it. So that's kind of at least my thought, and so I wanted to know if we had an agreement between us to have a letter like that sent, because I do think it is semi-time sensitive.
So I totally agree with that, but do we need to have an agenda item and vote on it, or can we do that at the next meeting?
So
Or?
you guys can authorize me to send a letter on your behalf, so it's signed by me, but sent on your behalf, just saying that you believe this is something that should be left to local control. If you all want to draft a memo yourselves and give feedback on a memo from you all, you would need to do it at your next meeting in August.
Okay, I'm fine with you writing a letter on our behalf that it should be local control, but what does everybody else think? Yeah.
Does anybody, any
Should we take it as
comments
a
on that?
motion, or?
I think I would just like to read it before it gets
Absolutely,
sent out.
before I send it out.
Yeah.
Before I will circulate it.
Just because it's the first time I'm hearing about it as a thing, so I don't really want to say yes entirely, but I'm not necessarily opposed, but I'd love to do a little bit of research, and then I can send an email to say yeah.
Yeah, I think it's something I think MASC has talked about a little bit, but it seems to be getting some speed, so that's where I don't know if they plan to have something trying to be done before the school year can start, but that kind of seemed to be sometimes some of the inferences out of the articles I've read. So that's why it's semi-time sensitive for us to do this. So do we need to make a vote on this?
You should make a vote directing me to send a letter on your behalf. I will circulate the letter for feedback before it's sent.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to direct the superintendent to write a letter to our state senator and our 2 state representatives, talking about what we just talked about.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. I do have a question. This would also include teachers, I believe, correct? Allison?
I don't think that they've gotten the full bill, but it potentially could.
It
Yes.
could potentially could, okay.
Yeah.
That could be a bit of a slippery slope there. All right, so any other discussion?
I don't know if it includes teachers. I feel like that would be like a safety concern, because you sometimes certain schools use their cell phones for like emergency, like there's apps to check in and things like that. So I'd want to take a look at that. I thought it was just for students.
But the gist is still the same, right? Local
Yeah.
control.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, again, I don't know enough about it. I'm aware of the movement,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure the specifics in the bill. We'd probably be asked to see one. But I am willing to take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It was 5-0, Natalie. It's unanimous. We are instructing the superintendent to draft a letter for us.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Approval of bill schedule, those are out.
correct? Consideration for approval, school committee meeting, June 17th. I will take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a first, we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Again, unanimous, Natalie, 5-0. Superintendent's report.
Perfect. So in your packet that I circulated last Friday, or Thursday, whatever day it was, you have some surplus materials for the Pembroke High School Science Department. So these are books and other instructional materials that Jonathan Shapiro, our content supervisor for STEM, has weeded out. We no longer use these. Obviously, when we are looking at surplusing materials, we first contact the publisher to see if they're willing to buy the books back. Anything you see listed here is they're not willing to buy back. We do reach out to the library, to the senior center, to other organizations to see if they have interest in any of these items before we recycle them. But when you're deeming something surplus, what you're doing is allowing us to dispose of it in the best means possible. So whether it's selling it, donating it, or recycling it, however it ends up.
Okay. So this comes up for a vote too, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor of removing our surplus science materials? Do I have a motion? Do I have a first?
So moved.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Perfect. A vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Natalie, it's 5-0.
The next thing under my report is just an overview from Teaching Learning Alliance about kind of the checklist on what we need to do for our strategic plan. You'll see there that they've identified the 5 focus groups that they have had success with in the past, as well as outlining some of the meetings. It's generally a 6-month meeting timeline, meeting once per month over the course of the development of the plan. But the first step really for us as a district is to work with the Teaching Learning Alliance to develop the survey that we want to send to families. As you know, as anytime we're surveying parents or community members, it needs school committee approval first. So we would start working with Gary Maestas from Teaching and Learning Alliance on the survey in hopes of bringing you a first draft at your first meeting in August, so that we can talk about it a little bit, do some tweaking, get a second draft and approval at the end of August, and hopefully start getting it out to people in the beginning of September. Another thing that we want to survey folks about is participating in the strategic plan. So as you can see here, there's about 20 to 25 members on a typical planning committee, and it includes obviously administration, staff, parents, students, but we do want to put something out for folks, parents and students that are interested in participating. Again, that would be another survey type item that we would have you look at the beginning of August. That's great. Again, the timeline is exactly where we thought it would be. It really ramps up in September and October, with the goal of having a dashboard of a plan ready and publishable by April, and the full plan ready to go by the end of next school year. So.
We don't need a vote on that, though, correct?
No, I just
Right.
wanted to give you an update.
Yep.
They are willing to come and talk to you at either one of your August meetings if you think it would be helpful to have a representative just kind of walk you through the process. Maybe we can have them come and talk a little bit about the survey, and so that we have some background information before we start to tweak it a little bit. So if that works for you, I'm happy to invite them to your August meeting.
Everybody think
sounds
that's a good
great.
idea? Maybe the first August meeting? 'Cause I think the second one will be going into the start of the school. Aaron, you tell me.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, whichever one makes the most sense content-wise.
Okay.
First August meeting? You guys do it? Perfect. Makes it easy. Next item, subcommittee updates. Negotiation subcommittee, bargaining update. Who gets to do that one?
I'm happy to start it, and then if you or Allison wants to jump in, feel free. So we did just meet for bargaining before this meeting this afternoon. As we shared at the last meeting, we are starting to make some progress. We have comprehensive proposals from all units of the Pembroke Teachers Association, and we have a comprehensive document that includes all of those proposals, which it took us a little while to get to. But it gives us a common place to be working from as we start to talk about language. There are still some big items on the table to discuss. Nobody here is immune to the fact that contract negotiations are happening across the state. Parental leave is a big topic of discussion. Cell phone seems to be a topic of discussion for us, and of course, wage increases. So we are working through those pieces. We have another meeting set at the end of July, and then 2 meetings set in August. Obviously, we are cautiously optimistic that we'll be very close to completion by the start of the school year, but even if we're not complete by then, we do feel like we're moving in a positive direction now. And I think that it took a little bit of time for us to get some momentum, but we are appreciative of the folks that came out today over their summer vacation to negotiate with us, and just the partnership with the union, understanding that a lot of the issues that we're trying to tackle are difficult and big, and really giving them the time and attention that they deserve, while always, preserving your fiscal responsibility to the community here in Pembroke, and to our students here and families. So.
Yeah, no, you said exactly everything. That's great.
Again, I would add it's good dialogue. Everything is nicely on the table. There's no animosity. There's no anger. So I'm pretty content with the way everything's going. So unless anyone has any questions on that. Vocational Planning Committee.
So the Vocational Planning Committee met last week just to kind of touch base about where we're at, what the plans are. Obviously, summer is difficult for folks, not just even for meeting, but even for holding kind of information sessions and whatnot. So we did want a core group of us get together to talk about planning some times and opportunities for us to start to present pretty much that same deck of slides that I presented back in the beginning of May here. We talked about having an opportunity at the community center an evening the first week of August for folks to come out, hear the presentation, and ask questions. We also talked about doing one during the day with some of the council on aging folks. So for August, we're hoping to target those two opportunities. I know, Sue, you had been working with the chamber about an opportunity to tape something and have it, live in prosperity.
Yes.
We also talked about kind of the work that happens to the side. So as you know, we have a parent representative on our planning committee, Melissa Hooley, and she is small but mighty, and I say that lovingly, but she is also organizing families and community support for the part of the work that doesn't fall within our realm, right? So campaigning for something. And so I want to make it clear that we are working closely with that group in the community that is for vocational education. I know that they're thinking about getting some signs made and doing some of that kind of FAQ kind of work, and we are working together as an institution. We can only provide factual information, and then the campaigning part is really left to those in the community that pick it up and run with it. So Melissa was excited to get a couple of dates scheduled at the community center, and then we'll build them out into the fall. We talked at the last meeting or the meeting before here about having information available at open houses in September at the farmers markets. We talked about just various places where we could tap in, and I think really it's about answering questions. I think people have questions. I think everybody is understanding of what vocational is and what a great opportunity it is for kids, but they have questions about what does that mean for Pembroke High School? What does that mean for my taxes? So being able to provide a list of opportunities for folks to be able to ask those questions. We are going to set up a vocational tab on our website, so folks that can't come out and come to things can go there for updates, can also see the slides, and we'll put the FAQ up there as it's constantly developing. So one of the other things that we talked about was about just how hard it is for people to meet, and people have busy schedules, and as a committee, if you would be willing to have an alternate. So Sue is your liaison to the Vocational Planning Committee, but maybe given the fact that we want to get a couple of things going in the late summer part, if you wanted to name an alternate so that we can continue to do that work with representation at the table.
I'd be happy to do it if needed.
Yeah, that's great.
We don't need to vote on that, though, do we?
You guys need to decide who it is. I don't know if more than one
No?
person is interested. I
Is
don't know.
anyone- I mean, Katrina wants to run with it?
If Katrina wants to do it, I mean, I'll be there. I'll
Right.
probably be going to most of them. You probably won't have to.
Yeah.
Unless,
Just as
my question.
it could be as needed for if there's a time where there's some you can't.
That's great.
It's fine.
Go to that?
You good with that?
Works for me.
Everybody seems good with it? Fantastic. I will add that I had the pleasure of doing a radio show this weekend with Fraser Townley, and he wants to do a podcast on a couple of topics, this being one. And I'm thinking actually one of you ladies may want to sit in. It might be
Yeah,
a
I'll sit
little
in.
more informative
Yep.
than I would
Sure.
be. So I will get you the date and connect
Sure.
you with Fraser if that's
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. I'll talk to him at the chamber meeting anyway.
No, fantastic. That makes it easy. Policy Subcommittee.
So in your packets, you have some handbooks again. The first one is the elementary handbook. We made some of the adjustments that you all had recommended at the last meeting, which included some language around recess. I know that there's some interest in having a little bit more conversation about that, as well as the edits that we had talked about about the weather index and consulting with the school nurse before a decision is made. I don't know if there's any other edits that people were hoping to see in the elementary handbook before you guys approve it and we get it moving towards the registration packet.
So the one statement I would like added to recess, which I'm not sure what page, oh, I think, okay, I found it, on 14, is I think I'd like there to be a statement that it's either, Pembroke Public Schools or Pembroke School Committee, some sort of statement saying that we support recess, like that recess is an important foundation of their
Sure.
school day, like some sort of just,
So it's a function of the school, so I would say Pembroke Public Schools, I wouldn't
Okay.
say school committee.
Yep.
I'd say Pembroke
like
Public
have that,
Schools
because I know recess is a new.
understands the importance.
And benefits,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. Just some ideological statement at the beginning
Yes.
of recess.
And then for the outdoor recess part,
Dress for the weather, right?
I've also, just based on talking with people from other school districts, like having also some sort of statement, and I know they send this out, the principals do in their weekly emails, but having it in the handbook, I think it would be good to say how students are expected to dress for the weather.
Sure.
And something maybe, I don't know if it's handbook or if this would be from the principals, but if they're having trouble affording the right gear for the winter, in instance, that there's help available for that.
What page are you on?
So
I think that's 28.
So at the beginning of the bottom of that page where it
yeah,
says
yeah.
outdoor recess weather guidelines, we would add the statement that students are expected to dress for the weather. As we get to the point where the weather is shifting, I think sending the reminder from the building principal with if you need assistance,
Yeah.
that might, I wouldn't
Yes.
put that part in the handbook,
and
but.
that's fine. I just want to make sure that, in addition to following the chart, which I'm really glad to see, because I think the first time I saw that was in this building somewhere, just including dress for the weather.
Which to my children means shorts in January.
Yes.
Yeah.
Most middle school boys, it does.
Katrina, any comments? Down the other end, Katrina, any comments?
Nope, sounds good. There are a couple
All right.
places in this handbook where we have to make the pupil edit
Yep.
and the his, her, but all of that and the page numbers will be accomplished when the document is published.
All right, so I'm going to ask for a motion for the consideration of second read and approval for the elementary school handbook. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstain. Natalie, it's unanimous once again.
The second handbook in your packet is the middle school. We made the edits that we had talked about at the last meeting. I did miss one. You had asked that I put what the user fees are at the middle school, so I will add that in the fee section here. So we added to all the handbooks about if families are having a hard time with fees, who to reach out to. I'll just add to that section here what the user fees at the middle school are for athletics and clubs.
So we can vote to accept this
As
as amended, okay?
And so one thing that I'm hoping in the section on riding bikes, that we include similar language for the elementary school on that non-motorized bikes are what are allowed. So
Correct.
So the e-bikes, making sure it's clear that students
So the
aren't allowed
language
to
that's in the elementary handbook about e-bikes and scooters will also be found in the middle school and high school
And high
handbook.
school.
In fairness, we did see a golf cart, I think, at middle school field day, but
ATV
next
or
level.
something.
yeah, it was very interesting. But that same language would go in all three handbooks.
Yeah, so that's the only other
That's funny.
change I would like to see.
Comments? Anyone? Ladies, comments? Okay. I'll accept the motion for the second read for the Pembroke Community Middle School Handbook.
So moved.
I have a
Second.
motion second. There we go. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? The ayes have it. Number 3.
So number 3 is the high school handbook. Again, I added the language about if you're struggling with the financial pieces associated with our fees, that is in here. We'll update the language to talk about e-bikes. What we did talk about at the last meeting in an edit that isn't reflected here in this handbook is about exemptions, parent exemptions from PE. And I think that's something that's not just a high school handbook issue. I did a lot of research after we last met. I did not find any school districts that had that type of language in their handbook, and I didn't find a place where it would really fit in our handbook, but I did find a couple of places that had information about it on their health services tab. So what I had shared with you in your packet was just kind of a rough draft of what I would recommend we put on our health services tab, just saying that a parent or guardian may request that a student not participate in PE for a PE class due to a minor ailment or injury. It talks a little bit about if it's a significant illness or injury that you do need to have medical documentation, and that obviously understood that if you're not participating in PE, you're not participating in after-school sports either. This is just a rough draft. I think this is something that we should have a conversation with at Ed Sub, but I would like the gym teachers and the nurses to be able to weigh in on the language. And obviously, given the fact that it's the summer, that isn't possible right now. But I do think, to the point that was made, as a parent, if your kid falls off their bike and has, a big abrasion on their knee, they're not necessarily not able to play sports, but they need to maybe take the day off or whatnot. And as a parent, you're not going to go to the doctor every single time, but making sure that the understanding is clear on when you do need to go to the doctor and what documentation we need in order to allow kids to
Yeah,
participate.
so is there gonna be like a certain number of, I would suggest that you put in a number, like the first, maybe it excuses 2 gyms, but after that you
Well,
need
so
to
I
know
think
the-
that's the part where it's going to be interesting to talk to the teachers, because at the elementary level, you might have gym once a week,
Yeah.
but at the secondary level, you may have gym every day.
Right.
And so, missing a class or missing a week, what does that mean in each place? And really letting the staff that lives in this world day in and day out kind of weigh in about that. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense.
The only comment I would make is if we have a note saying you cannot participate in gym, sports, whatever, we get a note clarifying they can.
yeah,
when they're
so
ready.
anytime you can't, we need a clarification that you can
Right,
again.
okay.
Yes.
I just want to make sure on that.
As long as they've been seen by a doctor. So
Yeah.
if a parent says they can't, they don't
If the
necessarily-
parent is excusing them for a day, we don't need a note that says
Yeah.
the next day they can. But if
Yeah.
you're excused for a period of time from
From a
PE or sports before you can return to that activity, we need a clearance
Yeah.
from the doctor.
That'll
That makes
take,
sense.
takes the liability off us.
Yeah.
All right, could I get a motion to accept the PHS student handbook?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No abstains. Okay. Natalie, it's unanimous once again.
The
Last one.
handbook is athletics, sorry. We had talked about adding contact information at the beginning, which I did. We also talked about, again, if somebody's having a difficult time with the user fees, who they should reach out to, so all of that is included here as well. And those are
Any-
the only edits we talked about.
Any discussion, ladies? Okay, could I get a motion, please, for the approval of the athletic handbook?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Natalie, the ayes have it once again.
And I just want to say thank you to having these done as early as we did, because I appreciate it a
Yep.
lot. I know this.
I appreciate all the work of the committee and the support staff. You
Right,
guys
so
are
the goal is
amazing.
to have the appropriate handbooks in the portal when you're going in and registering your child and signing off on the handbook.
Yeah.
So we are finally there. We met that deadline this year.
Yeah, I appreciate that a lot.
Okay, our next
That was a lot of work.
future meeting dates are, I have August 5th and August 19th. Does that jive with everybody?
Yes. So on August 5th, in addition to having Teaching Learning Alliance come, we will also do our fiscal year close. Just, kind of where we ended fiscal year 25, what that looked like in comparison to other years, and go from there.
Fantastic.
And 6 p.m.
It's a
6 p.m.,
yeah.
correct.
I'll make sure there's air conditioning in this room. If not, I will move the meeting to a different room.
Okay.
Do we have
This
any,
was a last minute
do we have any
situation.
questions in the mailbox or anything or nothing?
No.
Okay, we're good.
Wait,
One.
Yep, no, I
quick
said old
question.
business, new business. What do we got?
Oh, I was just wondering about the student representative and when that, like, if we know their approximate start date.
Yep, so they had the students that were interested identify themselves at the end of the school year. They'll vote as soon as
They come
school
back.
starts again.
Okay, cool. So
they should
probably
be able
September.
to be in place by our second meeting in September.
Okay.
And then I had a question, at some point, can we get a legal opinion and have a discussion about the Mahmood v. Taylor SCOTUS decision? And just talk about like what what, if any, changes we need to make as a district?
Sure.
As a result?
Obviously, that just came out, I think, on the 26th or 27th of June. We work at a glacial pace in education, and so there's no additional information or legal opinion out there right now. I will obviously, whatever I get, share with you all as it comes in. That might be something that we would probably be in a better place the second meeting in August to talk about, just to
Okay.
give it a little bit of time.
That works.
Yep.
Because we also want to probably contact our attorneys as well.
Right, so I already did reach out to both Joe Emerson and Jim Pender just to kind of send me anything that they're getting as well. There's generally a couple of firms around that put out an opinion pretty early, just so that we have something to be working from. It is, obviously, there have been times in the past where families have had concerns about a particular book or a particular unit. So it is not a new phenomenon for us, but this is just really kind of outlining what the steps would be for a family to take if they wanted to opt out of something.
Right, and my understanding is that we can't do any kind of a passive opt-out, the way the opinion was written. And that's my concern is that it's gonna really create a lot of administrative.
Right, so it would be the same as sex ed, right? It's
Well, according to this decision, it's not. You can't do a pass, well,
you're
it is
saying
and it
passive
isn't.
consent, not
Yeah,
passive opt out.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's what I meant, yeah. So, you know what I meant.
Yep.
Well, let's work on getting that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to close this meeting and we're going to go to executive session pursuant to Chapter 30A, Section 21A3 to discuss strategy related to collective bargaining. As an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the legal position of the school committee as declared by the chair. I need a motion and a roll call.
So moved.
Second.
Second, okay. Katrina down the end.
Yes.
Yes. Sue? Yes. We will look at Allison.
Yes.
Yes. Katrina?
Yes.
And I'm a yes.
Time check, just for the notes.
6:31.
6:31.
Nice.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Beat the heat. Stay cool. Thank you at the control board, sir.